We're live. Hello, everyone. Good night, evening to you all, or morning or afternoon, depending on where you all are or when you're watching this. My name is Andrew, or Radical Pragmat One, Radical Pragmatist on Twitter, and want to welcome you all to the New Left. Today at 8, that's on every Wednesdays at 8. We've got a great panelist here with us today, a little smaller than usual, but mighty, and we'll definitely have a lot of truth that we will be dropping you all today. I think today we've got a lot of different we've got a few different topics that we're going to be talking about. And I think the theme that these topics are going to center around is essentially direct action, right? We're going to be talking about a lot of real problems and issues that a lot of people are going through, but we're also going to really be talking about ways that we can try and go about this, whether it's through tenant organizing, general strike summit, or about shouting down a particular politician that's responsible for a lot of civilian deaths overseas, right? So we're going to try and get through, and I think because we have a smaller group today, I think we'll be able to get through all of this. So I'm looking forward to it. But first, I think it's important that we just introduce each other, since we got some people here that are still new to this. So as you may know, my name is Andrew. I'll go over to my right first, which is Logan. Logan, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and if you have maybe any interesting books that you're reading now or recently read too, just to give it a shout out, because I think it's all good that we introduce each other to different types of books and stuff, or different types of things to take in. So take it away.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Logan Grendel, at Focused on Infinity on Instagram, and at Watcher Infinite on Twitter. And yeah, I'm not really the thing I'm reading right now. I'm reading like a bunch of books. You know how it goes. You pick them up, you put them down. But the thing that I have been going back to again and again is A People's History of American Empire, which is the graphic novel. Graphic novelization of A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. It's really good because they have interspersed in actual news clippings and photos to like further illustrate all the points and just like show you what was actually going on and the things that were happening. So if you are like I am currently have a hard time reading long form versions of stuff, this is a great graphic novelization of it. And it's one of those things where you can just like, you can pick it up, you can read it all the way through, you can just like, go in chapter by chapter. Yeah, so that's highly recommendable. The other books I'm reading are less relevant to any of the topics at hand, but I really feel like that book should be they should replace most history books with that one. You know what I mean? It kind of just retells the story of this country from a point of view that puts the people first, and the actual truth of what was done to the people first, rather than just the building of the edifice of the American Empire.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not huge on censoring, but I do agree that there should be some history books that should never see the light of day again.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So we'll go on my right now, Jason. It's on my left, I guess. I don't know. It's weird.
That was a great recommendation. A People's History of the United States is the only book I've ever read 3 times. Although I'm currently reading Hate Incorporated by Matt Taibbi, which is like he's building on Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky and talking about how the media after the Cold War ended kind of was built on fake adversarialism, so that to get us fighting against each other and distract us so that corruption can continue. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Jason Kishinev. I live in Northern California, right in between Napa and Vallejo, right in the heart of the most disgusting inequality I've got a front row seat for most of it.
How lovely.
Yeah, definitely. And so we'll go with Comrade. Is it Caracas? How? I can't see. Cool. You
Yeah.
can introduce yourself and tell people. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jason. That's my last name down there. I live in Ontario, Canada, in the amazing city of Barrie. I know, amazing name. We're going through one of the worst housing crises that this country has ever faced since the Great Depression. The only leftist party we have in power just lost the election that was called for no reason, and we are stuck with a neoliberal government again for the next 5 years during the worst stage of capitalism. Yay!
Oh no.
Also, I'm 22.
Awesome. Austin, take it away.
I'm Austin. I'm 40 something. I can't ever remember. I think I'm 43, maybe not. I'm reading a little book by Sun Tzu right now, Art of War. I've read this a few times. If you haven't picked it up, it's a pretty brief read as long as you ignore all the preamble to the descriptions of different translations and the nuances therein. I'm from Alabama and I'm living up here now. And y'all heard of Alabama. It's
Sweet home.
it is sweet home, damn Alabama. And I got to somehow restructure this home. Maybe burn it down a little bit so we can maybe build it back up.
Excellent. CJ, take it away. You're muted, I think.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, Compton J here. Just here to the book that I'm not reading it, but it's on pause. I'm at the stage where I put it on the shelf and take it off. Now it's on the shelf right now because I'm just doing a bunch of stuff. But the book I'm in the middle of reading is Slavery's Capitalism, and it just shows kind of similar to what the other book that Logan mentioned, just telling the real history of how this nation was not, like, slavery is not a footnote. Like, this was a slave nation, a slavery industrial complex. It tells how slavery helped set up a lot of our government, a lot of the things that happen and that goes on even now. Tradition started there. Like, for example, a lot of people are just now finding out that tipped employees, that's a legacy of slavery. So it just talks about that connection, how people don't put it together, but it's there. So that's a book I do recommend. I don't know the authors because I don't concentrate on authors as much. I just don't. I like the book, and that's pretty much it. But I will contribute a little bit to this conversation. I do want to be more as a listener for this conversation. So I will be producing most of this, but I will chime in here and there. But I do want to listen more. I feel like I talk. I mean, I do talk a lot. I'm a podcast host, so I talk a lot. But I just listened to the last podcast we did, and I learned a lot. So I think I want to try that again for this episode. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And there you go.
Awesome. So I guess the book that I'm reading right now is A Black Woman's History of the United States by Dana Rami Berry and Kali Nicole Gross. And so, I think that's really interesting, particularly, we always talk about how history typically centers on white men. And then, you go to Black women and they typically get the least amount because it's gendered, and then talk about race. So it's really interesting to learn about that. And one thing that I actually learned, So there's a bookstore near me, a leftist bookstore. It's called the Lucy Parsons Center. And in this book, they talk about Lucy Parsons and sort of her labor organizing and such that she did. And so I actually went to this Lucy Parsons Center bookstore near me, and I saw this book called Poor People's Movements, Why They Succeed and How They Fail, which was written in the 70s. And I thought, oh, this is a great book to try and read maybe after, particularly when we're talking about direct action and movements and going off of even General Strike Summit. Like it talks about, if it's a book that's going to talk about successful movements and non-successful movements, it's good to also just read about maybe why they were to try and apply it to today. So, yeah. So thanks, everybody. I'm saying it as if we're finished, like we are just starting. So now we're gonna, Build Back Better, but for real. So now we're gonna get into the topics, particularly topics first off regarding evictions and tenant organizing. So to start out, just to give a whole layover of kind of what's been happening, right? As we know, the previous eviction moratorium ended in late July. And it really, I mean, even though the eviction moratorium it was available, it never really fully prevented evictions, right? Landlords used a lot of loopholes to kick tenants out, right? They maybe said, oh, we're going to renovate maybe a little bit of something here. And because of that, you're going to get kicked out. Or I'm just not going to have you sign the next lease, right? So there were various different ways that they did this, that people were still getting evicted, even though there was eviction moratorium. Now it's interesting because during the eviction moratorium, there was actually the study that the Eviction Lab did that counted 480,000 evictions that were happened since March 15, 2020, filed in 6 states and 31 cities, right? And so that's all they did the study from. So imagine how much happened within those 50 states during the height of the pandemic, right? And also they said this does not factor in other things like landlord intimidation, right? Where people were intimidated to leave their house before actually an eviction file happened. So, and then of course we have what I think we talked about previously in this show where, there, the squad and everything protested on the Capitol Hill when the CDC basically said we can no longer extend this, as according to people like Paula Jean Swearigan and others, right? They actually got permission to camp out, right? So a lot of this, I think a lot of people, and I definitely agree, saying this was kind of AstroTurf protesting in a sense. And so what we are going to do is talk about, I'm going to show a clip in just a second. I want to bring light to a couple of different organizations who are doing real protesting and have really been doing a lot of effective things. So the first is the Kansas City tenants. And so they have been doing a lot of work in Kansas City. CJ, if you want to just roll that clip, we can show visually a little bit about how they're doing this and what sort of tactics they are using, and then we will talk about it.
Alrighty, here we go.
Judge Gray, you are complicit with every eviction you hear. You are making people homeless during a pandemic. You are killing people. It doesn't have to be this way. You have a choice. End evictions or people die. No one should be evicted during a pandemic. This is not justice. This is not due process. This is violence.
So at the courthouse, we had a blockade of the court entrance where the landlords and the lawyers have been going in to evict tenants for the last several months. This is only one of the ways that tenants are being evicted in Kansas City, though. So meanwhile, we had a disruption of the online court dockets, and that was actually the most disruptive action, whereas this was symbolic. We had folks chained to the doors to shut down eviction court, and our message is that every eviction is an act of violence. And by Judge Byrne and the rest of the judges on this docket allowing for evictions to occur even during a national eviction moratorium, they're actually sentencing some tenants to death. We know that there are tenants who have already been forced out of their homes and onto the streets, who have gotten sick or will get sick from the coronavirus as cases continue to spike. And the CDC nationally has said that ending evictions is a matter of public health urgency. So we were here to shut things down in person, and meanwhile we had about 50 people on the phones all morning, and we have people ready to go all afternoon to make sure that every single eviction docket is closed for the day.
I was one of the ones that was illegally evicted last September. We had a court date, but my landlord decided to put my belongings from myself and my children out in the rain. When our court date happened, because of the things that she did, it was dismissed with prejudice. Then on that same date that our case was dismissed with prejudice, she came back down here, filed another eviction under her mother's name. It tears me apart to know, because everyone doesn't have the accessibility to do online hearings. Everyone isn't tech savvy. Everyone doesn't have a laptop. Everyone doesn't have a cell phone. And you mean to tell me evictions can still happen when they don't have these accessibilities? And the courts don't even give that accessibilities in the middle of a pandemic? That's why I'm here. I'm here to use my voice to let you know, that everyone know that the court system is not giving accessibility, and they are using their power to kill people. My baby girl turned 1 year old today. Today's her birthday.
Oh,
we
man.
should be planning birthday parties. Our children play together. We should be planning our birthday parties. But at the same time, me and my friend, we can't plan birthday parties, because if we don't have a house, where are our kids gonna stay? Where are they gonna play?
Damn.
That's why I'm here. I'm here for my children, here for my family. I'm here for my community. How can I live a life if I don't have a life to live in?
We'll be back! We'll be back!
Well, you heard the last chant, we'll be back, right? I think our folks are crystal clear that if we don't get the justice that we need through the powers that be, we're gonna take it ourselves. We like to channel the chant. If we don't get it, shut it down, and that's what we have done today, both in person and online. And we will definitely be back to continue doing that. Our perspective is like, our hotline is running every day, and we're getting dozens of calls from tenants who are facing eviction, who haven't had work in months and have nowhere to go and are living out of their cars. We had people come up and approach us today who were evicted months ago and saw us and felt for the first time in months like they weren't alone. We can't, now that we're in this fight, we can't abandon it, and people are really suffering right now. So this certainly won't be the last that the court hears from us if they don't decide to make some major changes.
Yeah, so heavy stuff. I think it's one of those things where you obviously know it's happening, but seeing it up close just kind of reminds you just kind of how real it is, and how much it really affects people on an individual level. And so, you hear the numbers sometimes, and I feel like it doesn't always quite register, but then when you see kind of the realities, then it clicks. And that's, I think, part of just how the human brain works sometimes. But yeah, I think before we really talk about it, I think a little extra context to this is that I'm reading from a source called I think Flatland, saying Missouri is one of only 7 states that never issued a statewide moratorium on evictions, according to the Evictions Lab. And the CDC moratorium does not automatically prevent evictions, right? Tenants have to present a declaration form that says they have been affected by the pandemic. So, and that's part of why kind of all of this is happening. So let's just go around first to, we can go to Jason K first. I just want to hear kind of what are your overall reactions to this?
They're both Jason, both the other Jason and I are both Jason
So
K, actually.
I'll refer to, I'll do Comrade K and Jason K to make things easier.
That will
Jason
keep it
K.
clear. Well, yeah. It is absolutely heartbreaking that this is happening. I find, even though those people were driven to that by despair, I find their action to be absolutely inspiring. And it's like you said, it's a lot more real when you see it for yourself, like we did, and that's why we're not seeing this on the news, on the mainstream media. They're talking about the weather and sports and traffic, and some restaurant or whatever. It's absolutely disgusting, but this is the things that we have to do. We have to, like she said, if they're not going to give us justice, we have to take it. And since I'm on here, I'm going to plug an action that's going on in the San Francisco Bay Area on the 25th. They are having a tenant organizing meeting in Concord, California at 3501 Cowell Road. Again, on the 25th. This advertisement doesn't say the time, but I'm sure that you could find it. If you can find me on social media, you can find it on my page.
Okay, great. Yeah, maybe. At some point, if we find it later, we could always drop it in the comments and stuff for people just to see it. But yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. Let's get Logan. Do you want to take it away?
Sure. And it is great to put a human face on to these things. It really is gut wrenching to see. And this is just one person, right? Multiply that by thousands, hundreds of thousands of people nationwide, right? And let's keep in mind that, the moratorium on evictions, it should have been a moratorium on rent. Okay, so we've already been backed away from what the ask should have been, because you're not just going to suddenly find 12 months rent under the fucking couch cushions after a pandemic, when you probably lost your job and just things have been absolutely awry in every measurable way, right? So that's, first of all, I love to see that people are doing this kind of action, and I'm going to take it a step further than saying it's great that they stepped up. This is what we should have been doing all along, at every single step of the way, right? Because we have sort of, as a society, we've been taught to outsource the idea of activism to voting and voting alone. That's why we talk about the presidential election for 2 years before the thing happens, right? Because voting is what, no shade on people who think that, because that's the propaganda we get fed from it's coming out of the walls, right? So what these people are doing is what should happen, right? We feel disempowered, disconnected from power itself. So when something like that happens, back in the day when somebody was getting evicted, you would see your neighbor was getting evicted and everybody would form up and you would just shut it down, right? And we don't do that anymore because we're like, well, I guess somebody's going to handle that. I got to go to work. And just the constant relentless grind of capitalism and our, especially rapacious breed of it, right, has whittled away our ability to just see okay, this is reality in front of me. This is what should happen, right? We don't even think like that anymore. We think about oh, well, I better call my representative, right? And it's dangerous to do direct action, right? Obviously, it's dangerous to get involved. But the one thing this all underlines for me, and I guess that's our overarching topic, so I'll just cut it off there, is that like direct action is not just a strategy, it is a way that we should be interacting with politics and power at all times, because we have only one world and only one life, and we should not be outsourcing our power to anyone.
Andrew, if I may, that Concord event is at 9:30 a.m. They just shared a registration link. It's at 9:30 a.m. at that address.
Okay. Why don't you send it to us in the private chat, and we could just make sure that it gets in the public chat so people can see.
Sure.
Just yeah,
Sure.
you know, you never know who's watching that is
Yeah.
nearby that could contribute.
But I second everything that Logan just said. Absolutely right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, and I'm looking forward. So, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Novi is going to be joining us at around 8:30 ish. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from them, because they actually have been in the process of trying to create a tenants union that has gotten disrupted in certain ways, not just through union busting tactics, but also through some climate neglect that has caused them to have to relocate. I don't want to call it a natural disaster, because a lot of it isn't natural. It's literally just neglect on the climate. So look forward to kind of hearing some thoughts there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of maybe what we can do right now is talk a little bit about, so in terms of strategy that we were seeing, right, with these Casey tenants, and this is just one snippet of a lot of different things they do, right? So they were literally standing in front of the courtyard, right, blocking people from coming into the eviction courts, right, and being loud about kind of the issues that were going on. Can anyone think of other type of effective ways that you think are of kind of stopping evictions or slowing down evictions from happening?
Slashing their tires at their house.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But to go off of what Logan was saying about direct action, and really like direct action as a lifestyle is what I'm hearing, and I like that. And with something to think about with voting, in my opinion, because I do believe in dual power. Your vote at the local level, and that's where this is maintained. The eviction stuff is usually a county or city process. Well, those city officials, those county officials, they are much easier to unseat and get rid of and get to be in front of their houses, yeah, than let's say, a senator. Those people you can reach out to every day. Not only that, you can get their ass out of office with 10,000 votes, 5,000 votes. You know what I mean? They're they are they don't have that big money to back them up. So that's something to think about. And as far as like some physical tactics, I think maybe take a look at what the folks up at Line 3 are doing. They are hardcore, boy. And, parking trailers and trucks and whatever, chaining themselves to the machines, using their bodies to grind, to get putting their bodies upon the gears of the machines to grind it to a halt. And that's what that's about. My thoughts on that a little.
Yeah, it's interesting. And welcome, Novi. Glad to see you here. And I definitely want to get, so as I was telling you, we're talking about tenant unions right now. We just showed KC tenants and sort of some of the work that they're doing. There was a video in terms of ways that they are stopping evictions from happening in Missouri, one of the 7 states that didn't have a statewide moratorium. And so, yeah, that's just to kind of catch you up. But before we go over to Novi, I just wanted to kind of piggyback one thing that Austin said that I think is something I recently was thinking about. They always say that when you elect a progressive politician into office, right, they always get co-opted, right, by the government, right? Imagine, though, if we really had strong direct action, right? Doesn't matter who we elect, we could co-opt them through fear to actually, represent us,
Yes.
right? And that's something I think when we look at electoral politics and we say can't really make a well, it could, if with direct action, could make it actually make a little bit more of a difference. So,
Bullying works.
right, yeah.
Make politicians afraid again.
Exactly. And they were afraid in the 30s and 40s. They were afraid. The people who enacted labor changes, housing changes, right? They weren't activists at the beginning. They were, so yeah. Sorry, was someone going to say something?
Actually, yeah, I was going to build on what Logan said as well, which is that we should all be outside our Congress members' houses. Even though we may not live close to our senator, we probably live close to our representative in the House. And in most industrialized countries, when they did the lockdown, they covered 85% of people's paychecks, and that protected the renters, it protected the landlords, it protected jobs, it protected businesses, it protected the economy. And in our country, they didn't do that, and they caused this. And so we should be outside our Congress members' house demanding that they cover people's rents. And this is not an anti-landlord position. It gets mistaken for an anti-landlord position a lot, but this actually helps landlords too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah. So Novi, wanted to, first of all, feel free to introduce yourself and everything to everybody, since I know that you weren't here when we did introductions. And then I just want to hear a little bit from you in terms of your experience. I know you were in the process of creating a tenant union, sort of where that went, what were some of the successes, what were some of the barriers, and then we could go from there.
Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Novi, and at Renovation 1409, I actually was born in Texas, but I call Louisiana my home, and we were actually in the process of forming a tenants union at my previous apartment complex. We lived on campus, but we were really loosely affiliated with them, due to the fact that a lot of our people who lived there were international students, veterans, people with families, etc., and they didn't really pay attention to us. So a lot of things weren't getting done, including things like whenever there were replacements, instead of giving us new parts, we got old parts. There was a lot of substandard conditions, living conditions. So we were working on trying to do that. So we planted the seed. We had some people interested, and we were working on that, and we started to spread it out for the community. And then 2 things happened. First was the pandemic, which made it significantly more difficult to organize. The second thing was that we had a new residential director. They're kind of like a manager if you live in a university campus like we did, and they promised that things would get better. So combine those 2 things, it kind of lulled people to a state of complacency, and then things wouldn't really get done. So now we moved to a new place because it's accessible. It's actually a little bit better condition, despite the fact that we still don't have a sump pump in. And there is a mayor place, and we're starting to work on trying to rebuild a tenants union here. There are 2 major barriers. One, a lot of people don't speak English, which causes a significant issue, especially if you're me, and I know Spanish, but my Spanish is kind of more limited to what you learn in school or reading academic articles than it is to speaking on these matters and using slang. So that could be problematic when trying to translate. The second part of the matter is again the pandemic, because the pandemic not just is causing issues with employment, it's causing issues with people worried about housing. That if they speak up too much, then they could get evicted from their homes, or things could happen, or if there are repairs to be done, they would be the last person to get done. So there's a lot of fear going on that's preventing from tenants unions to go forward. So one of the things we really need to do is start educating people about that they exist, and not just in blue states like California, but places like Missouri, and that they are successful and that we can work on them. And tenants unions take time. That's a lot to do with it. You can't expect one to go overnight. It's definitely worth it, but it's going to be a process.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I guess, I mean, first of all, I get, I'll ask anyone else. Has anyone else had any experience with organizing tenant unions as well before we kind of move on? Or is this, sounds like Novi has the most experience? Yeah. So it sounds like, some of the big barriers, right, to creating a tenant union that Novi was talking about was language barriers in the building, and then the fact that there was a pandemic going on, and then there was a hurricane that happened, right? So a lot of sort of different disasters as well. Does anyone have any ideas on maybe potential ways to try and overcome some of those obstacles that happen? There.
Well, I did come across a resource, uh, and I'll try to drop it here, but it's a national tenant union. Here we go. ATUN-RSI, Autonomous Tenants Union Network, La Red de Sindicatos de Equilinx Autónomos. Damn, I did not do that. I did not pull that off.
It was a good effort, though.
Thank you.
You tried, man.
Gracias, as they say. And so this autonomous North American Autonomous Tenant Union. Now, let that just ring in your ears. Not a city tenant union, not a state, not even the United States, but a North American tenants union. And that includes Canada all the way down. Hell, fuck it. Why don't we make it South America too? But that's something I've been looking at, and it is very devoid of any southern areas except for Miami, it looks like, and Austin, I guess. But my point being is starting at your local level or whatever, a bigger thing is possible. And these folks meet weekly. So there is an easy way for folks to start jumping in and get some knowledge, which I definitely need. And I was just wanting to try to bring that up and hopefully some people will find some interest in that.
I worked for the census in 2000, and we were instructed that if we went to a Spanish-speaking household and the adults did not speak Spanish, that they oftentimes have children in public schools that are bilingual and will use their children as translators. And so that may be a way to overcome a language barrier.
That's a good hack.
Yeah, that's what I found helpful. And again, it's going to take time. It's not impossible, but you definitely need to work at it. Another thing is that work through the social networks that are already existent, like again through churches. I know I talk about churches and places to worship a lot, but hey, we're Southern. Churches are a big part of daily life, and if you can work and branch out networks through that way, it actually can really help us start to make a difference.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it can be easy to kind of overlook what's around you in general sometimes. I mean, there have been many times even where I've just kind of realized I'm like, oh, wow, that's only a few blocks away. And I'm just noticing this now. How? Right. And part of that is, I think, by design, so nonprofits and other organizations are kind of separated, right, for those reasons of not bringing them together. But I think it's always good to look what's around you at first, whether it be churches, whether it be nonprofits or anything. So, yeah.
Totally agree with what all of you are saying. And also, I'm going to go the other direction with it and say, like, in addition to locally, like a lot of the literature we have about organizing is from before the internet. And like, it really, really behooves us to use the best tool that humankind has, right? Like, you could reach out on the internet and end up meeting someone close to you, or you could just have, like the union, that I'm sorry, I forgot your name, was talking about the North American Tenants Union. That's a fantastic idea. And I think like that is the sort of thing we need to be thinking about. Like, yes, we should be thinking locally, but also we need to use every tool in the box and also not lean on just like literature because it's like, time tested. Like, we're in uncharted waters. So we, might as well try some new strokes to use that metaphor.
Mhm.
Let me
There-
just chime in here real quick, and if you guys or the panel, not you guys, but the panel can address this question on the screen. This person doesn't know what a tenant union is. What is the function? What is the function of the tenant union? And if somebody could just kind of break down what a tenant union is and their function for this comment here.
Sure. A tenant union is an organized organization of renters that either live in an apartment complex or an apartment building. Though sometimes they can live in a small terrace duplexes. And what they do is that they all work together and pay a small fee in order to help stand up against the landlords and the companies that own the complexes. So that means they can work together to try to improve living conditions in the buildings, working on an urban garden. In case if there's an eviction crisis, they can fight back against the landlords trying to kick people out. It's basically working the same way as a regular union, but instead it's working to protect your home.
Great. Also, Savage Joy. Hello. Sorry. Realize I don't think. Welcome
Savage
to the
Joy.
panel. Thank you for.
Hey,
Hey.
just fresh out of the shower, so
Yeah. So, I think this kind of goes into, looking at sort of the direct action that the KC Tenants Union had. I think, really kind of talks about different forms of direct action. So, and I think, and actually, one of the person who is part of kind of the show who couldn't make it today, Francis, I think, shared with this guy Bill Moyer, kind of how he outlines different forms of activism. Right, Bill Moyer was a guy in the '60s that went to Chicago to work for an anti-racist housing company, enjoyed MLK staff as an organizer, and basically identified 8 stages of successful movements. So thank you, CJ, for pulling it up. Sorry, forgot to say roll it there. But I'm just going to read a little bit of this, and then we can talk a little bit about if this makes sense today, since this was back in the 60s, and kind of additional thoughts on this. So essentially, he says there are 4 roles of activists. I know we're getting a little academic here. We'll be out of it in a second. So 4 roles of activists. The first role is the citizen. articulates a vision of the good society, achieves legitimacy in the eyes of ordinary citizens, withstands power holder attempts to discredit the movement, reduces potential for violent attitudes and action within the movement, right? And then we have Rebel, which puts issues on society's agenda, causes creative tension, i.e., highlights the gap between what is and what should be, represents society's moral vanguard, and leads in stage 4 of social change movement. And then we go to Social Change Agent, who nurtures a new public consensus, acts as an open system, informs the public while learning from dialogue with the public and the power holders so that his or her ideas are open to change, leads in stage 6, promotes a long-term perspective. And then finally, we have the Reformer, uses institutional means of getting real change, leads in dialogue with the power holders, and at the interface between the movement and the public. So, I just found this interesting because I think it kind of talks about all different ways and roles that you could play and the positives and negatives to each of those things, right? And I know we have some people even on this panel who have been very much active in direct action in one way or another. So I want to kind of get to all of you, here are some thoughts on this. If maybe what we could do is I want to hear Comrade K's thoughts, since I know you've had some internet problems. So welcome back, and then we could go to Savage Joy and then take it from there. Savage Joy, are you good, Comrade K, or do you want me to go to Savage Joy first?
Oh, I was under the impression that Savage Joy was going first.
Okay, she's going first.
I didn't want to be intrusive or nothing.
No worries. You can go.
I was quiet because
yeah, I mean the one thing that stands out to me and is withstanding any attempts at trying to discredit or anything like that, and it's like, man, was that easier before the interwebs? Like so much easier. When they wrote that, it was a different animal. Like right now, especially, seeing what we went through for the Medicare for All marches and stuff. Holy shit. So there is so much more stacked against us with the interwebs, but at the same time, it's also more advantageous because we reach more people that way. We wouldn't have had 56 marches without the internet. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that written, because it's like back then it probably wasn't as difficult. But so that's the major thing that stood out to me. But I do like how one of their things was rebel, because I get really, really done with the hashtag resist bullshit. Of course, I wrote a parody book about it, but it's like, what are you resisting? Resist what? It's time to revolt. What are you resisting? I'm resisting this sentiment. Okay, how are you doing that? And what is it accomplishing? Not a damn thing. What has you hashtag resisting done in 5 years? Nothing. People have still done every single thing that they say they're going to do. You have stopped nothing. You're still at brunch. So yeah, I like that rebel. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially with Twitter, it's like someone can just post one tweet that's just complete BS and then it blows up. Like the amount of the internet has made things really easy for infiltration. And
I don't know if that was fair. I think hashtag resist has scared the hell out of the establishment. You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially when it's next to Blue Wave. It's like, whoa, holy shit.
And riding with Biden. Blue Wave, riding with Biden.
Yeah, earlier today it was respect Biden.
Yeah.
This actually is sugar free by chance. But like, yeah, like most people were super fucking scared back in the whole blue wave day. You could tell it didn't. The blue wave shit did nothing at all to scare Republicans or anything like that. Because to them, it was just a game. To them, it was literally just a fucking partisan game that didn't matter in the end because both parties are controlled by the same corporations. Looking back on that now, I think about how stupid it was, and I'm like, oh my God, it accomplished absolutely nothing. And then when election day happened, it wasn't really a blue wave. Yeah, they put it in the
I called it a piss ripple.
A piss ripple.
Yeah, not a blue.
It was a blue piss
ripple.
ripple. Yeah. Sorry, I have a little one in the room with me in the back, and he's enjoying his tablet and whatnot.
Good.
Anyway, yeah, that did absolutely nothing to upset the establishment, and it was so sad how many people were jumping on it who called themselves progressives. Because as a progressive, like, why the fuck are you telling people to vote blue when you yourself say, yeah, you know, most of the Democratic Party doesn't want to like cooperate with us? Then why are you promoting them? Why? It's not like there's waves of progressives across the United States that are fighting these incumbents and winning. It's not happening nearly enough to actually tip the balance in the favor of the progressives. When they do get shit done, it's very rare. The blue wave shit, it was so disappointing and it was so juvenile, and I imagine it did absolutely nothing to help marginalized people, to help people who were being evicted, to help all these poor people. One more.
It was actually used to exclude Green Party candidates and independent candidates.
Sure
when they
was.
they would have blue wave events and they would not let you speak if you were not a Democrat. Even if you were
fascism.
Even if you were clearly the more progressive of the candidates.
But John Kasich gets to speak at DNC events, so you know,
Right.
it's all good.
That was the dumbest thing ever. Oh my God, I remember that now. Oh my God. It was so telling. It was so unbelievably fucking telling when they invited John motherfucking Kasich to the DNC. I remember this like it was yesterday because I remember being so stung about it. I think it was the first primary debate or whatever, not the first, like the third, between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden after all the candidates dropped out and endorsed Biden at the same time within 48 hours. Nothing weird about that. But like, so Bernie was in the debate with Biden, the debate went on, yada, yada, and it ended, right? And now CNN did that thing where the camera panned out, and it like goes into the back of into like the back of the studio, so you could see the debate stage and the candidates walking away. You see Bernie shake Biden's hand and then wave and walk away. Biden on camera walked up to the debate people on the desk and started laughing and shooting the shit. And the anchors put their stuff down. And they're like, yeah. I saw that for like 10 straight seconds.
I saw that too.
Yeah, you saw it too. I thought I was crazy. And then they go back to like the room where they're like, okay, well, it's time to dissect what the candidates were talking about. I feel like this debate was very well moderated. It was very nice. It was very civil. You know, both sides got equal chance. Yada, yada, yada. No. Y'all played favorites.
Oh, absolutely.
You're re-traumatizing me, dog.
Yeah.
You're re-traumatizing me.
Here's the thing. I am way beyond Bernie, as you can tell. But, like, seeing that just sent me through the roof of my house. My brain circuit.
Yeah. And
I mean,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lauren.
So, like, absolutely to everything you're saying. And I'm just going to put one name out there, Henry Wallace. This has been happening for a long time, right? The DNC, it's controlled opposition, right? And it's hard for us to accept that. And getting like, you know, I know a lot of people have broken entirely with Bernie and like, whatever. Like, I don't care about electoral politics, but I will say one thing. Bernie proved that you can do everything perfectly in terms of how the system says to do it, right? You can sit by yourself for 40 years. You can be an independent, caucus with the Democrat. You can follow every single rule. You can be the amendment king. You can get things passed through chicanery and through trickery and never, and still get no credit for it, right? You can be vilified by everybody and still, when it comes down to it, when you are about to win, they will just cheat you because they never had any intention of letting you win in the first place. And even though I'm a person who like I'll vote every time, right? Because whatever, it's a game, and that's one of the things that happens in this game. But I just don't want us to talk about it anymore because that's like the least of our worries, right? We need to be doing more because the entire electoral game is exactly that, a game. It is a way for them to maintain power. And the sooner we get people to accept that in their hearts, the sooner we can actually go somewhere else.
The main thing about electoralism, in my opinion, is it's impossibly slow to do anything for us. Ultimately,
yes,
it's
totally.
We as we brought up, back to direct action as a lifestyle. By the way, shout out to COVID for passing the 1918 flu epidemic in lost lives. And so, sorry. But
we're failing an open book test with that one.
Yeah, dude. Oh. But I was trying to say that they did estimate to kind of get back to the tenants unions. I think there's an estimate of 750,000 families are getting kicked out, and that's already on top of the 500,000 people that we have that are unhoused in this country, and with a surplus of, depending on who you count, with a surplus of 11 to 17 million vacant properties. Once again, it's, capitalism has all this excess, and there's plenty of resources out there for maybe some people to just look up online what places are empty at their local their state land bank, and maybe they can just go crash there in a pinch. But this situation, do y'all think it's gonna get better anytime soon?
No, not a chance.
No, it's gonna get worse before it gets any better, unfortunately.
And then you have people like AOC praising Elizabeth Warren, okay? And when, she is like my Beelzebub, I love that woman with everything in me. So when she was running for president, I studied her shit. So I campaigned for Bernie in Iowa for 5 weeks, and I knew her shit better than his because I was like, she's garbage. Look, this is. Well, her housing big structural change bill was literally lower rent by 10% within 10 years. And here's AOC a year later thanking her on Twitter for her help with the housing crisis. So it's amazing, when people have the ability, to do something to help. Like if you're running for president, you're like, we're putting a cap on rent, and we're going to have it so that it doesn't increase more than 3% every year, and all this stuff. Instead of doing you say 10% within 10 years, and you're not running for president, and all of a sudden it's like, help these people. You're a fucking opportunist. You're fake, and this is what we have to deal with. We don't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I may chime in.
Cool.
Sorry,
and then no worries, and then we'll go over to general work straight. So yeah, go for it.
Okay, great. So the thing that I also want to add on to that, especially with them getting rid of the eviction moratoriums, that part of the of ending housing, part of making sure that we have housing is to give everyone a house. Like I remember I saw a study that was, I think it was a few years ago, but it said that like for every homeless person, we can give them 2 to 3 houses because there's about 30 million empty houses. Matter of fact, Denver a few years ago incorporated a program where they just gave homeless people a house, and it wound up eliminating, and surprise, surprise, it eliminated homelessness. And part of the thing is that when we talk about these things, it kind of ties back to what Logan was saying about direct action. Is we got to show how this actually benefits the community as a whole. For instance, I know like people want to talk about, well, I worked for my house and everything else, but it's like you're spending like $35,000, $40,000 to help maintain a homeless shelter, versus if you just give someone a house, like you're actually only paying at the most 17,000. So you're actually not only you saving more money, but like you're also having a better allocation of your resources go somewhere else, like building up schools, like building up new alternatives to economics. So that's just my little 2 cents. I just wanted to add on that. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for adding to that. And so I think this kind of transitions well into talking about the General Strike Summit as kind of as it being another form of direct action. So, CJ, would you mind just kind of coming in and just kind of explaining a little bit about kind of the General Strike Summit, the overlay of it, so everyone can be on the same page, and then we can discuss a little bit.
Absolutely. So, General Strike Summit, I'll lay sort of the backdrop, I guess, for the discussion. So the General Strike Summit it's a three. Hang on a second here. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's a 3-day live stream event and each day it's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. So, Friday 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the same thing for Sunday. And during this time, we're going to have discussions like this. We'll have interviews with different activists. We'll have activists giving tutorials. It's all centered around coming together for a summit to talk about how to build a successful long-term general strike. So we're coming together to talk about how to build mutual aid infrastructure, for example, how to find like-minded people in your area, to answer concerns like, if I participate in a general strike, how will I feed my family? How much, if I participate in a general, or I live in a state where there's laws against striking, so how do I participate in a general strike? There was a question we answered today on the live stream where a person who was from the disabled community said, how can I want to participate, but how can somebody who is disabled, how can I also participate and contribute to a general strike? So all of these types of questions is what the General Strike Summit is about addressing the concerns of the people who may be on the fence about supporting a general strike. It's about talking to the people who aren't into politics, like you and I, and some of the people on the panel who follow politics on a daily basis, but they're just kind of never follow politics. They're not invested, but they do have the same struggle with employment, with living check to check, with paying their rent, with putting food on their table. So they have the same struggle. They're just not looking at it through the lens of politics. So how do we reach that person? So that's what the general strike is about, coming up with demands. It's just on and on. It's just several different ideas I have in my head right now, but you get the gist. It's answering all the questions everybody has about a general strike and talking about real strategies on how to plan a successful general strike. And I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you, CJ. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to, now I think it's a good time to focus on the general strike that's happening on October 15th. And I wanted to kind of talk about it from the lens of what has been some discourse among some leftists. And we could debate as to whether or not they are in good faith or bad faith, right? But I think there's a general argument amongst the left of we need to start doing general strikes right now as soon as possible. It can't wait. People are dying. People are uninsured. People are underpaid. People are getting evicted, right? Like we're talking about all these things that are intersecting, right? And so there's much of this like we need to start doing something now, where there's another segment that's like, well, wait, if we start jumping into general strikes right now without solidified infrastructure, you could potentially be doing more harm, because if people don't have a solid infrastructure to fall back on when they're doing their strike, then they may get fired and may be in a worse place off, right? So these are always, I think, questions that we have to really grapple with, and that I'm sure will be a lot of questions that, you know, when the General Strike Summit happens, right, will be discussed and talked about at length. So I just wanted to hear kind of your overall thoughts on those kind of two different camps, right? And obviously, like, you don't necessarily need to fall in those two different camps. There can be yes and there's in middle, right? It's not just binary. But let me get in Logan first on this. What kind of thoughts do you have with regards to that piece?
Nothing is binary. So the Discord for the October 15th strike, since it started, and at the very beginning, it was a fucking mess. I mean, it was like it was just like there was arguments about every little thing, and and at first I was just like, well, this is terrible. And then, you know, just organically, better people came in and took better leadership positions, and then things started to evolve and it got better. And look, it's, you know, who knows if it'll be successful, but I think it's, you know, if people are too afraid to join because they're going to lose their job, they're just not going to join, right? So like it's not, you know, it's not compelling one to join in at any point. And I think that we need to be thinking more of how we can exhaust the power structure, right? There was a thing, and this is more about like in-person protests, but I think it applies. Look, if you have one big thing, like we can figure that out. But if you have like 100 little things going on, we can't do it at all. And we should be thinking of like if somebody's genuinely on the left, and I mean like, and the left starts at abolition. It starts at being, you know, anti-capitalism, right? I'm not talking about liberally on the left. I think we just need to be like, look, I don't know about this action, but I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not gonna talk negatively against you. I'm gonna stay out of your way and let you do your thing, right? Because like we just need more people doing stuff. I say this all the time. The right's not unified. They just don't fuck with each other like we do, right? Like we just need to let people just do their thing. And the October 15th strike, maybe it'll be great, maybe it'll be a failure, but I just don't think at this point that I think there's no way of stopping the rising tide of general strikes and massive boycotts, because people are just fed up and they're angry and they're hurt and they're tired and they're scared, and the planet's literally collapsing around us, right? So like we can spin our wheels about the most perfect way to do something, or we can just do it. And I think right now I'm all about doing it, and if not myself doing it, supporting those who are doing it, even if just by not getting in their way when they do.
Awesome. Thank you, Logan. So let's see who would like to respond to Logan on that.
Well,
I will. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go for it, Rob.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree and just say that any kind of hit that we can do to the corporate establishment, we should be doing. We should be thinking now about our Christmas shopping and trying not to not to buy Christmas presents from these corporations that are supporting our corrupt establishment and anything we can do. And Logan's absolutely right. If the strikes are not organized by Democrats, then all the Democrat progressives are going to blame Jimmy Dore, and there's going to be a whole big, to do. And it's
always his fault.
Fucking bullshit. Yeah, we absolutely need to be, getting off each other's backs. When leftists are working left, leave them alone.
I support working rights, but I don't like the way Jimmy's talking right now. So, I don't know.
There's an asterisk. There's a caveat. There's a unless.
Could I maybe ask what it is that so many progressives don't like about Jimmy Dore? Because I've seen discourse about him and how much they don't like him. I genuinely need to ask, what did he do? Did he stomp a baby's face in? Did he kick a puppy across the street? What did he do? What did he say? For real? Because I keep asking.
Oh boy.
Against because AOC said, if you're disrespectful, it is violence. So therefore, we're all violent, apparently. So yeah.
I personally don't like Jimmy Dore. I hate talking about these. This the only thing I'm going to say about it is this: as a black person who understands how virulent white supremacy is right now, I can't fuck with you if you go talk to Tucker Carlson. He's the most popular, most dangerous voice just on television right now. He has the ears of millions of people. He is a great liar. He is great at dissembling. He won a court case saying that nobody should take him seriously, right? Which also Rachel Maddow did because garbage. They're both garbage, but whatever. For me, it's a no. It's a no for me. But it has nothing to do with the fact that he's too far left. It's just that I don't trust the motivations of people who hang with people who hate me. If you hate me, I'm sorry. It's what is that stuff? Song. You and your racist friend. Sorry, it's not working.
But the Jimmy Dore hate happened before that.
I subscribe to that, Logan. I agree.
The Jimmy Dore hate happened before that. And the reason is because when AOC doesn't do what leftists think she should do, we're supposed to say, AOC, we would have liked you to have done something else. Instead of, she's fucking corrupt. She's screwing you over. That's why people hate Jimmy Dore. Because he's angry, as we all should be.
On that, I completely agree. Totally.
So I think, we could talk about this all day and I think unpack a lot. But let's I want to now let's redirect and not talk as much about podcasters as much because there's, as they say, there's someone for everyone to listen to. You're not going to vibe with all of them. You're not going to trust all their intentions. Yeah, of course, some of them are grifters. As I know, I'm sure Savage Joy can attest to because she's been around a lot of them, as I think she said. But we don't. Yeah. So, right. So I think I think one thing, and this actually might, interestingly enough, go off a little bit of what Logan was saying, not stemming to Jimmy Dore, but in terms of when it comes to, general strike. And I think one thing that was really talked about a little bit in I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Straight out of politics at 3 today with the panel there is coalition building, right? And so and how if we're going to create a movement, there's going to need to be some coalition building. And it's going to be, if you want to build a coalition, it's inevitable that you're going to have to build it with some people that you maybe don't agree with. And so this is something that's always gone through my mind a little bit when I hear that. I believe in coalition, right? But as what we were saying previously when we were talking about activism, the first one where it's making sure that your movement is not being co-opted by design, right? left movements have a history of being co-opted by forces that don't mean well, right? Whether it's the CIA, FBI, right, in violent ways or non-violent ways, by purposely installing people in there who don't mean well and mean to sabotage it, right? So I guess something that I'm trying to work out myself that I think maybe we could all maybe talk about a little bit is how do you reconcile the mindset of building coalitions across people of maybe different ideologies while also making sure that people that are in it, that you're working with people you trust. And if you give anyone any sort of power, that they are someone that you trust and has good intentions and is not there to pull the rug under so it all collapses. Does that make sense? So
Vetting.
who would like,
Vetting.
okay,
Vetting.
but how do we vet, right? Like when it's so many people, how do we vet? Austin, take it away.
Not that easy.
Well, vetting is tough. It's tough to trust people. My dad says, trust nobody. You can have confidence in somebody, but trust is a whole other matter, which probably derives from his cynical used car salesman, you know, professional job he had for quite a while. He knows every goddamn trick in the book, I tell you. So vetting, well, one way, I mean, there's a few ways you can look at simply how the government goes through a security clearance process, and it's a process that interview that person one-on-one, write down what they say, see if they're full of shit. You know, somebody shows up and be like, if somebody can sit there and point like 3 years ago, I was here doing this. That's some vetting right there. You know, if somebody can point to, you know, literal receipts, you know, them in front, out, leading the way, yelling, doing this stuff through their own prompting. Yeah. Somebody, now with that, look out for the overly ambitious puppies that suddenly have everything you wish, wanted, desired. Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I ain't never won no lottery, and I don't plan to. So vetting, talk to the person, look at them. Everybody reveals who they are if you look long enough. If you sit back in a room and, you know, close your mouth and open your eyes and your ears, they'll tell you who they are. They will tell you who they are. You just got to look and think. That's my opinion on vetting.
Okay, great. Thank you for elaborating on that. Yeah, let's go to Savage Joy, and then maybe we could go to Robert too, because I realize I haven't talked as much because you came in a little later. So yeah, Savage Joy, take it away.
So while I agree with that, it's a totally different animal online. As majority of people know, you know, I was a lead national organizer with March for Medicare for All. When you have 56 marches nationwide, you have, I mean, there were only 10 of us on a national team. So we had like,
did you say 10?
Yeah, for 56 marches. So we had like 200 people in our Slack, like trying to help this location, that location. And all it took was one dumpster of a piece of shit to get in our Slack and make fake ass memes that we invited a freaking white power like Nazi to come speak when we never had a march in that city scheduled. We never talked to the dude. The newspaper even verified that he had no idea who we were. Like, it was so easily disproven, but that meme was out there. Didn't matter. We knew who the guy was. We caught him. We put it on blast. Didn't matter. Once somebody infiltrated and did one thing, just that one little meme, people were trying to take us down till the day the marches happened. they were trying to take us down. Certain Miami people, especially, they really did not want to see us succeed. So it's so different online. We have like questionnaires. You know, what do you lean left? Who do you support? You know, what things like that, like have you organized before? People can lie. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah.
It is not hard at all. Just yeah, I organized 15 things when I was in New York growing up. It is so fucking easy. And it's not like, we're just volunteers. We're doing 16 hours. We're fucking exhausted. We're putting everything into this. And if someone answers the questions and they seem kind of scroll their social media, it seems all right. They're posting things we agree with. I mean, that is vetting when you're online and you have a movement of over 200 people. That is the vetting process, really. It can't be more in depth.
Yeah. I think, I mean, yeah, it's obviously a very, very hard and very complex and tough. I feel like tough to find a solution on, like a hard solution, because like you said, you can do what you can to vet, you can try, but when you're overworked, you got not too many, you've got all these different things you're handling. There's only so much vetting that can be done. But yeah, Robert, curious to get some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so listening in, I just have to say, like, it's definitely is tough to vet, especially as Savage Joy mentioned, especially when you're trying to coordinate online. It's I kind of like in like online dating. Anybody can say whoever it is online. It's another when they're actually there in person, because like they can answer the questionnaires the right way. They can do all those things. But I will say this: like one of the things I will say when it comes to doing an in-person protest, um, having some guidelines. If I give a more recent example on my end, so I'm part of a group that's been fighting to stop the desecration of a historically African American cemetery, and we've been at this for about 5 years, and we actually had an event on September 10th where Reverend William Barber of the Poor People's Campaign came and spoke. And one of the things that, because I was the head of security, I made something very absolutely clear that that nobody under any circumstances is to engage with security guards or the police under any circumstances. If you are engaging with security or police, not only will you be escorted back to the church, but you will be asked to leave. This is the first and final warning for anyone. And sure enough, when we got to the site of the desecration, we saw two people trying to talk and harangue with security and police. And true to form, it's kind of like when I see people doing that, despite all that, that to me is an agent provocateur, and those are easy to spot because they reveal themselves eventually. You just gotta, as we are 47 Ronan mentioned, is like they will reveal themselves. But the thing is, I think it's like one of those things. It's hard. Like we can have security protocols in place for in-person events. We can have guidelines, and even online, we can have questionnaires, and we can have like encrypted stuff, and we can have like an encrypted network, right? But that's not going to stop someone from probably passing this on to a friend who didn't register, and then that friend could possibly troll. And I think that when it comes to especially when it comes to the General Summit, is that at the end of the day, we gotta, keep a lookout on who's telling the truth, who's sincere, and who's basically, who's basically gonna be about putting in the work after the summit's over, because it's a 3-day summit. We're coming together and exchanging ideas. Now, who's serious about putting in the work? That is another form of vetting in a sense, in terms of, are you like an armchair revolutionary? I don't mean to bring up an old term from the 60s. Yes, okay, slacktivist armchair revolutionary. Are you really going to be about that work? So again, the problem with vetting is nothing new. I mean, the Panthers were dealing with this back in the day. The Allende administration in Chile was dealing with it. Even Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso, was dealing with this. So this isn't new. It's just our best guess for those of us is that if we can learn from history and how and what things to look out for, that could probably help better our chances. So that's just my 2 cents. So
Cool. Yeah. Comrade K, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd say that, yeah, I agree. Thomas Sankara had to deal with that shit because, he went through the minor inconvenience of being betrayed by his second in command and being kidnapped and killed by French loyalists. But that's absolutely right. That's what it could lead to. That's how, unfortunately, his reign came to an end. But for us, I think it's so hard to vet. It is. It is very hard to vet, and you can't get everyone. And it's not going to be 100% successful. You're going to have times where eventually provocateurs will unfortunately win. You're going to have days where, sometimes a right-wing grifter on CIA person online succeeds in tearing a community apart because online it's a completely different ball game. But what I also think we need to understand as leftists is that even though provocateurs exist, even though fakes exist that exist solely to disrupt leftist movements, we do have to be careful who we call counter-revolutionaries and who we don't, because the left has a
Could you tell me? Could you define that for me?
Yes, because this is something that happened to me yesterday. Okay, so I used to be an anarchist. I'm not an anarchist anymore, but I obviously I'm not an anarchist anymore. However, I still have a lot of sympathy for them. I really like them, and unlike a lot of Leninists, I truly think that they are some of the best allies that communists could really ask for, and they're probably going to end up getting further in the revolution than Leninists ever will because they don't require a party. But I digress from that. I have two friends. Well, I had two friends, both of whom are Marxist-Leninists like me. Friend one was the guy who got me into a activist group that I'm a part of. And friend two is in said activist group. Now, on the exact same day, at a coincidence, I had a conversation with both of these two separately on one particular elephant in the room, China, right? Now, I often say if Canada was to have a socialist revolutionary government put in place, I often point out that it would very likely be intercepted by the CIA and the Americans. Whether or not they would be successful in overthrowing it, completely up in the air. But I try to make the point that I do not believe that China would support us at all because they just don't. They don't support the EZLN in Mexico. They don't support the Kurds in Rojava. They do not support socialist revolutions all over the world. They don't support black socialist groups in the United States who are fighting for their lives against the system. And they align themselves with right-wing groups like the Taliban, like the Duterte regime of the Philippines, like the military junta in Myanmar, who were slaughtering Muslims by the thousands just a couple of years ago. They define the Stalinist viewpoint of socialism in one country, meaning the Chinese will keep socialist policies in place to ensure that they keep millions of people out of poverty because it's beneficial to their own country. But in terms of workers owning the means of production and liberating groups of oppressed people, they don't give two damns. This is the same country where a poster of Black Panther had to be censored by covering his helmet. This is the same nation where Muslims are sent into camps to be re-educated. Whether or not that's the end of the story, I don't know. This is the same place where LGBTQ people like me are basically treated like shit under the government, harassed constantly, and in some cases criminalized. Now, I discussed China with two of these comrades, one of them being a former comrade. The first guy I asked about China, how could Canada have our own revolution if China won't support us? And should we even support them in their struggle against US imperialism? And he politely replied to me, yeah, Jason, you're absolutely right. They're state capitalists. They do a lot of things horribly wrong, and they align themselves with right wingers, and they shouldn't be even called communists at this point. However, it is very important that at the end of the day, we support their sovereignty against any other imperialist powers who just want to get in there and exploit them for their own gain. Because at the end of the day, the West does not oppose China because of what they're doing being morally wrong. It's why American companies went over there, exploited the market, and made China rich in the first place. But America simply opposes China because they're an economic competitor. And if they did something to provoke China into a war, we would need to support China's sovereignty. Now, whether or not China extends a hand to us is, very telling, but we'll only be able to tell when it's the moment of truth. I think we can critically support their struggle against imperialism while at the same time criticizing them for essentially being capitalists. He had a very, very, very nice discussion with me. My other friend, not so much. I basically listed my complaints about China to him, and he came down on me like Thor's hammer, man. He told me I wasn't smart enough to understand their policy, that China was closer to being communist than the Soviet Union was, and that they're just not ready to give the workers control over the means of production. And I asked him, well, what about all the oppressed groups in China who can't thrive in that society? What about how Black people are treated in terms of Chinese media in a very racist manner? There are still Chinese TV programs that, as a joke, air ads with blackface. Their LGBTQ people are still they're outlawing effeminate men, for crying out loud. What about Muslim and Christian religious minorities? Why can't we stand up for these people? And on top of telling me that I wasn't smart enough to understand their superior form of communism, on top of the fact that he basically told me that them aligning themselves with the Taliban and the Duterte regime and the military junta in Myanmar, that's simply strategic. They're playing the game better than us because they're in this game against the US. Why should they support other socialist movements? It's too expensive. By supporting groups, he said, by supporting groups that actually have a chance against other US imperialist powers, he said, oh, that's simply strategic. The EZLN and the Kurds can't do anything against the US, but the Taliban and the Duterte regime can. So, that why. And he also said when he came to the oppressed groups of people in China, he simply said, yeah, I don't give a fuck. I've reached maximum output on my give a fuck meter. And he said, yeah, I can admit that the black faith is wrong and that the homophobia is wrong, the Islamophobia is wrong, and not sticking to the main principle of the workers owning the means of production is wrong. So he 180'd there and admitted that was wrong to begin with. But he simply said, I don't give a fuck. Why? Because we don't live in China and we don't get to impose our Western values onto them. I didn't know that standing up for civil rights was simply Western values. In fact, opposing civil rights seems to be well within Western values in the first place, considering how Western nations have reacted to civil rights movements. But those are the two kinds of people we're dealing with. And I got called a counter-revolutionary by this guy for not uncritically supporting Xi Jinping's regime, even though he opposes the West. It's like, you're supposed to. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I would be locked in prison under that guy. I'm not going to fucking support him. Yeah, if his country was invaded by the United States, 100%, I would tell the U.S. to back off, and I would support the Chinese in their struggle against imperialism. But that's where it ends, my guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to shake hands with you if you don't care if that guy wants me locked in fucking prison. This isn't this is awful. This isn't even like just talking to somebody who thinks bad thoughts about me. This is allying yourself with someone who wants me arrested, who wants other marginalized groups persecuted and put in jail. You don't give a fuck? fuck you, buddy. So yeah, we need to be on the lookout for leftists who call other leftist counter-revolutionaries on those matters. Sorry if I ranted for a bit. Sorry for interrupting.
No, dude.
Yeah, we'll get a couple more, and then we can move. So
I'm interested in what Logan has to say. Because
looks like Logan was going to say something. Yeah, what's up, Logan?
So getting back to the overall idea, there was a lot in there that so the only thing about making coalitions, right? That was the question. How do we make coalitions?
Yes.
And from the Brown Alliance, right? If there are people who are willing to throw out human rights, then they're sorry, you're not on side. You know what I mean? And that's for me. That's my one hard line. However, on the other side of that, people who don't know the right language, right? Like there are people who push back on when about pronoun use or about things that they're just not used to, right? That's the kind of stuff that we have to just be like, look, I understand that this is really important to me, but we can have that kind of conversation in the guild hall. Let's keep our eyes on the prize, right? If they're not throwing away my rights, if they're not willing to stand with people who are actively trying to destroy me as a human, okay, we can work on the things where you don't understand or where we maybe have little disagreements. That's okay. And I think that that's one of the ways that liberalism has messed up the left, is by pushing all culture issues to the forefront and making that the primary lens of discussion rather than drilling down into what people are really fighting for. So in coalition building, I think we need to be softer on things that are important to us, but where there's just a lack of understanding or a lack of information, and harder on things that are hard lines. Said certain things, you're not on side. You're not really for the people, right? And that's where it comes down to for me. Are you for the people? Understanding that Black people, immigrants, Indigenous people, LGBTQ people are people, right? If there is any argument about that, it's over. Otherwise, let's figure it out.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate both those points, and I think one real takeaway from Comrade K was in terms of that I think is used all the time when it comes to people who are trying to support overthrowing imperialism, is it's oh, you like that ruler, and it's no, I don't. You can not like them, but also be can you please not just occupy their land, right? And that shouldn't be a hard thing to understand. And I think the fact that it is just shows how propagandized people are all the time, right? And how the pro-war narrative has really just kind of been the thought police in a sense, and has really just manipulated people a lot. And I think I really appreciate what Logan was bringing up, because I think, there is that balance when you're working with people who do not approve of your existence, right? That makes it kind of difficult to collaborate. So, these are always things that we need to be thinking about at the forefront. And I think continue to have conversations on in terms of how do we build a coalition? How do we build some sort of red tape so that we kind of have some idea who is not good faith and not actually carrying it, and then kind of going from there. But this is a conversation that will continue to be had in other forms, and FHL will continue to be talking about this. So on that note, let's move on to George Bush being protested speaking, and some of the heroes here. I think this is a good way to kind of round out and end the show.
We're all a little excited.
Yeah, I think we're feeling this a little bit. Yeah, so CJ, if you wanna, so there's two videos I think we're gonna show, because there were two events that George Bush got protested, and so take it away, Jay.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons weapons of mass destruction. You lied about objections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMD. A million Iraqis are dead because you lied. My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize. Apologize.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
That was like the biggest rush I ever had when I saw that tape for the first time. It was absolutely amazing.
Love it.
My God.
So I want
did
to.
see another video. You said there was a second. That was the only link
Yeah.
I
So
saw there.
CJ in the
Or you mean the tweet? Or the tweet? I have that.
DM,
Yeah.
that I sent. If we could just, if you're able to pull it up, if not, it's fine. I just think it's a great contrast to see the look on George Bush's face when he's getting called out. Talk about a punchable face. Wow.
Yeah,
There was
give me a
another
couple of minutes.
angle.
I'll bring it up for you.
Okay,
There was
sounds
another
good.
camera angle.
That reminds
Anybody
me
got
of-
their shoe ready?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I said that-
Oh, I need to see this.
I was about to say,
I need to see
it reminds
this.
me of when, yeah. I was gonna say, it reminds me of when Bush was president and someone threw a water bottle at him. Like all those many years ago. I'm like, this had to me
I got
just
you
as much
covered.
power effect.
I got both.
Yeah, like. But that was beautiful.
It's
We
very
are watching the other video.
telling.
CJ's pulling it up. So in the meantime, we can.
It's very
Sorry, Jason.
telling, honestly, to look at this and see the reaction to it, because honestly, this is a huge indictment on conservatives and Republicans in general, because they are the ones who do not shut the hell up about support the troops, support the troops, support the troops, support the troops. But yet, when one of the troops actually speaks out, it's sit down and behave. Oh hell yeah! I'm gonna.
All
see
right, let's watch. Let's watch. This is another. So that was Preisner, and this other person. It's late, so I'm blanking on their name. They're a lecturer at college. We'll pull up the name in a second after the video. But let's do the video, and then we'll discuss.
Okay. Sir, this is not the time. This is not the time for that, sir. Yes. No, it is disrespectful to the audience.
Now, fuck your audience.
No. There we go.
His face is so red.
That's okay.
I guess he's in his old age and he can't help, he can't handle being told that he's a war criminal.
Sounds like you're giving him some benefit of the doubt.
No, I like that he can't handle it. I actually revel in the fact.
Yeah, so that was a video. He absolutely heard the 1 million Iraqis dead. That's when his expression completely changed. He heard that part, and he heard everything after that.
Yeah, so the second guy was Jeb Sprague. So there were two events back to back that George Bush was speaking at. The one the day before was Mike Preisner, who served in Iraq and has been an anti-war activist since then because of all the shit that he saw. And this person, I to be honest, I hadn't heard of this person before this time. Name is Jeb Sprague. I don't know if anyone else has. I love his description of who he is, though, on Twitter. He says he's a lecturer at UCLA, research associate, UC Riverside. Disrespectful to the audience, according to George W. Bush. Banned at all Speaker LA events. Anti-war machine. Medicare for all. So sounds like a pretty cool person.
And can we just laugh about how his name is Jeb?
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, holy shit.
It's like the meme of him standing in front of the electoral map Oh man.
Yeah.
It's so. Listen, I know this is funny. Don't get me wrong. This is very funny watching George's face just turn into a wrinkled tomato when he hears, his crimes, like a judge is reading them out to him. If there by any chance is a judgment when somebody perishes and goes to the afterlife, I think George is gonna. I think he's gonna just stand there and be like, "Can I just go? Can I just go? I can't even pass." But the thing is this. It is absolutely horrific to know what it has all come to. This poor man was shipped over there and he went through hell, all not even for the sake of his country's government or whatnot, for the sake of some oil companies. And the fact that these Republicans won't even acknowledge him when they're all like support the troops and whatnot, they tell him to sit down and shut up. It's honestly super fucking sad. I'm sorry if I'm like rambling on again. It's beyond tragic. Just know that it's gonna do this.
You're telling the truth, because I had friends of mine that served overseas in Iraq, and when they came back, some of them came back and they're still dealing with therapy and rehab, from injuries from there. And unfortunately, I've lost family members, and so I'm just like, this war was definitely, besides the fact that to me this war was illegal, because last time I checked, only Congress had the power to declare war, and Bush, went ahead and did it anyway, didn't get congressional approval. Like, this was a war for oil. This was a war to try to expand empire and Pax Americana, if you will. This war was completely not necessary. And as for faint signals, there's a scripture in Isaiah: "Let there be no rest for the wicked." So I'm from agreement with that.
Yes.
So.
Go for it, and then we can go to Jason K, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Sorry.
You want to go first, Jason?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, much love to Empire Files. They are amazing. Both Mike Preisner and Abby Martin are like top notch. Like, highly recommend them. But beyond that, this was amazing, and this should be what everybody in Congress and the House of Representatives and the Senate, they should not be able to go anywhere without this happening to them, right? They have blood on their hands. Like, we're going to be at 700,000 people dead by the end of this year from just one thing, right? So, like, they should get no rest. Like he said, no rest for the wicked, right? They shouldn't be able to go have a meal in peace. They shouldn't be able to walk down the street peacefully. Let's do things peacefully, but hound them, right? We know where they live. Take shifts. Go outside their houses with a bullhorn if you have to. But these people should not be able to live amongst us while they are killing us. And that's why I love this particular protest against George Bush, because this is what they all should be getting. Every single one of them should be getting this all day long, even the ones you like. Because if you make their lives uncomfortable, then they will go back to their colleagues or whatever and be like, look, I can't sleep at night because we got to do something.
Jason, take it away.
I was so grateful for that video of Mike Preisner. He did such a good job. I could feel his despair. Yeah, and that's what every time George Bush talks, he should be having 100 shoes thrown at him every single time. And what the hell is going on with this country? They're trying so hard to rebrand George fucking Bush. It's gross.
I'm gonna go down to the food company and just buy myself as many as I can.
So one thing I just wanted to say as just kind of my last wrapping thoughts to this is, notice how clear Mike Preisner was. He didn't just say, you're an asshole, you did war. He gave facts and figures, specifically said what he did, and specifically said how it affected him, right? And that has got to make him feel uncomfortable, right? And I'm just thinking, imagine back to Logan when you were saying this needs to be happening everywhere. Imagine if just everywhere Bush talked, a bunch of people came, split up in different parts of the rows, and then would stand up, clearly say why he's a piece of shit, And then once that person walks off, another person rises up and then does that. Imagine the amount of uncomfort and chaos you would cause. That alone could make someone like George Bush, someone who should not be allowed back in polite society, but thank you, libs, for bringing him back. So, that would make him just not want to at all go back into public life, right? Shame them, shut them up, get them out of there, and let's get to work. So that, I love that. And hopefully things like that continue to do more. So on that note, let's just go around, say kind of where they can find you, any kind of like anything coming up that you find interesting, or sorry, I can't talk now. It's late. Anything coming up that is important that you're doing, right, that you'd like to let people know about, and then we'll close out, say goodnight, and we'll all go from there. So, Jason, take it away. Jason K, take it away.
Okay.
Not Comrade yet, not TikTok. Okay.
So yeah, I see that Comrade K put his Twitter handle in the name, and I think I'm gonna start doing that. That's smart. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel as well, although I usually just upload clips of really progressive, little clips of really progressive things. And we just started here in Napa. We just started the Napa Institute for Peace about 10 days ago. And so I'm really excited about that. And we've got Julian Assange sign holding event scheduled on October 25th and 26th, right before his extradition hearing.
Thank you. Let's go to Austin next.
Hi there. Let's see. I'd like to leave a thought, and then that right now, individually, every person, there's economic warfare being waged upon you, and Americans like war. So I think it'd be perhaps a good way to get some people to understand what's happening to them is to tell them that there is economic warfare being committed upon them domestically. Yeah, some phrasing like that might be helpful to get some recruits for the general strike and in the future, and the one coming up. And Logan, awesome sticking your nose in there and leading the way on that, and letting us know how that is forming and going, and the growth that has to go along with that. Last thing, I'm starting doing Twitch stuff, news and hacking training. I'll drop I'm the1 Ronin, or the_1_ Ronin on Twitch. Check that out, y'all. And everybody, I'm so happy to have been here today and got to listen. And shout out to the chat as always. Thank y'all.
Yeah, definitely. Our viewers, great stuff in there. I always forget to shout out the people in the chat, but they really are great. Okay, Comrade K, and since we're pressing on time, we're just going to work our way to the right and then end with Logan and CJ. You can, if you want to say final thoughts too, but don't wait to be called. Just talk.
Okay, no problem. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it, and I love everyone on here who came on to speak, especially you, Logan. You've been amazing, and I'm so glad that we could all just share thoughts like this and just thrive. I'm active on Twitter, as I put in my name, and I also do TikToks. Yeah, I know I'm ashamed of it too, but it's a good platform. God. But yeah, I'm active on those two. Those are my main things. I have a YouTube channel, but I'm not safe enough to it hasn't. It's not big. It's not good enough for me to present yet, so I'm just gonna hide it for now. Those is where you can find me. I make videos about fascism and how to fight it and stuff like that on TikTok. So that's where I am, and I'm going to continue to be involved with Red
Hype
Hamptons
stuff.
with this. And yeah, great. I'm gonna dip now though. So bye guys. I have to go because the kid needs me.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
You can find me at Savage Joy Marie 1 on Twitter. And after over 4 years of doing a show with organizations, I finally just left and started my own, which as a blind chick is not the easiest thing. So definitely please subscribe. You could just type in Savage Joy Marie Man into YouTube, and I have over 400 of my previous shows uploaded there as well. So you get the whole over 4 year shows when you subscribe. This is my shit lib parody book. And you can get that at savageandpat.com. My co-author, Pat Cody, who is Peter Goosh / Nate's Liver. He and I are actually flying into Los Angeles to do a book signing. Very, very, very few tickets left because Jimmy Dore, Miserable Lib, and Rick Overton, who was on The Office for years, and great people are going to do comedy at our book signing. So I have the link tickets pinned on my Twitter. If you're getting tickets, you need to get because there's only a few left.
Okay. All right. Well, you can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle, I put it in the group chat, but it's at 95star. My IG is that guy Rob 26, which really makes me wonder about who are that guys Rob 1 through 25. But very much I'm active on Twitter. I'm active on Instagram. I'm active on Facebook. Currently, in addition to fighting to stop the desecration of African American cemeteries. I'm also involved in trying to stop police terrorism. I refuse to call it police brutality anymore. I call it police terrorism now, and education. So definitely let's link up, and I'm looking forward to the General Summit strike. And thank you all for having me tonight.
Thank you. Hi, Logan.
Thank you all so much for having me and for the conversation. I really appreciate it. And thank everyone for watching. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok most frequently at Focused on Infinity, on Twitter at Watcher Infinite, and also I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Focused on Infinity. And I don't, on my podcast, I don't do any form of advertising or anything. So appreciate that. And also, if you search my name, Logan Grendel, on Spotify, I just released a spoken word single and have some other stuff on there. But my most recent release is most politically relevant. And I think, maybe some of you will enjoy it. And thanks again. Much love.
Much love.
Much love. Okay. So that wraps everything up. And yeah, CJ, I don't know if you have any final things.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody that had participated in this discussion. Like I said earlier, I'm glad I decided to listen. It really allows focus on the conversation. So, yeah, great conversation. It will be immediately available after this if you want to clip some things from it. I know somebody had said that in a the comments earlier. So if you want to click, it'll be immediately available right after this live stream, or it takes like 5 minutes to appear after this live stream has ended. So that's all I got. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Right on.
See ya.